Hey guys, David here. I know this video is going up kind of late. I was busy Tuesday night, so this review is going up a little late. But happy Thanksgiving! And nothing says Thanksgiving like a review from yours truly. Not really. But let's go ahead and review episode 9 for season 1 of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. entitled Repairs. Something that the show definitely needed after last week's episode. And like you already should know, spoilers for the episode are going to be in this video, so if you have not seen it, don't watch. But this episode was I don't want to say superior, but quite a bit of an improvement over last week's episode. Basically, this episode follows the case of this girl who somehow it appears that she has some sort of telekinetic power. And of course, because it's something that is beyond the government or the police, the cops' control, it is up to S.H.I.E.L.D. to investigate and see what's going on with this girl. And while they're on this case, a couple of things are touched upon from the previous few episodes that we've had up until this point in the series. And one is that, oh my god, they really did do it. May and Ward have hooked up, and just, wow, it's crazy. And to be honest, I'm actually a bit of a fan that they decided to go ahead and treat this professionally. And I'm talking about the characters, sure. They spent the night together, but the next morning it's back to business as usual. And I like that, I like that they're not gonna actually bring in feelings. It's just a matter of letting go of that stress that they've been holding. And because of that, you can kind of see those effects by the end of this episode for both characters. May starts showing hints of the person that she used to be, especially with that prank at the end. And Ward, like I said, even though he's still strictly business when it comes to a situation that requires him to be, at the top of his game, when he's not doing that, he is a guy. He's a normal guy making a sandwich. So I love that these two characters, which were becoming the more dull characters in the show, are starting to loosen up, and we're starting to see some background to them, not only with Ward in the last episode, but now with May in this one. And speaking of May's background, I really enjoyed the Joker-esque take that they decided to do on her backstory, because everybody was telling a different variation of that story, so you kind of didn't know which one was real until Coulson said his version. And to be brutally honest, even after Coulson tells the more sincere counterpart of that story, I still feel like maybe there's some things that even Coulson doesn't know. I mean, for God's sakes, Coulson doesn't even know what happened to him after the events of the Avengers. So there's a possibility that maybe there's some details that May herself kept from everybody else, including Coulson, and maybe we'll find out later on in the future. Even Skye is starting to slowly become rather a really cool character. I would like to see her being more sympathetic with some of the things that are around her, especially because of this episode where she needed to be more sympathetic and warm towards the girl that is being hunted by this telekinetic power. And I really enjoy that side of Skye, and it's making her be a more likable character, and I'm hoping that she sticks with that and the writers stick with that with the future of this series, as well as explore that mystery surrounding her parents and what that's all about. But let's go ahead and talk about the case of this week, which involves this girl that happens to have some sort of telekinetic ability that she doesn't know anything about, let alone be able to control it. And I'm very mixed with this case because a couple things. One, it brought out that really warm side out of both Skye and May, especially by the end of how May says to the guy who was actually doing the hunting, you gotta let go of the past, which is obviously something that she's gonna have to follow. She's gonna have to follow her own advice, which turns out to be something that Coulson told her back in the day. And I really like that. I really like that it brought some really good emotional elements out of those two characters. And I really liked that it made the episode talk about something that any other episode would have considered to be too sensitive to talk about, which is religion. I really liked that they brought out the whole God aspect and they weren't afraid to go there. Granted, they didn't explore it to its full capacity, but I liked that they said, hey, we're not afraid to touch different boundaries here. We're gonna go. I mean, we already got quite a bit dark in that episode where you saw a guy get his hand. Well, you don't actually see the hand getting cut off, but you see the aftermath, and it was pretty gory within a PG-rated show. So I like that they're taking one of the more controversial subjects in all of history and just touching on it just a little bit here. What I didn't like about it though is that it was quite average. The two actors that were brought on to guest star in this episode that are mostly involved in this case, they're okay. I mean, they weren't anything special except one of them looked like Josh Brolin's less attractive cousin or something. But you know, the whole storyline with the case was average. There's not that big of a twist. In fact, the twist, I saw it coming from a mile away, that she didn't have that power and somebody else was doing this. I saw that coming. I mean, I predicted that within the first 15 minutes or so after being introduced to this case, and lo and behold, it ended up being that. So it wasn't anything spectacular. Plus, it brought out this thing that I'm starting to... Okay, up until this point, I've been somewhat forgiving of how quirky Simmons and Fitz are during different parts of the series. And it's something that an awful lot of other people that have been watching the show, especially people who have reviewing it and posting the reviews online, say that they don't appreciate that because they're supposed to be S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, professional S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. So why are they being quirky? Why can't Fitz get through a glass door that keeps opening and closing? I mean, it's very, very slapstick. I've been kind of forgiving of that to this point because there's been moments like that that have made me laugh. But it was in this episode where I said, okay, you guys have crossed the line here, and I gotta be honest, that is totally unprofessional. The whole thing with them wanting to pull a prank on Sky, and Fitz going the extra mile to dress up the mop and everything. Although I gotta be honest, when the mop popped out and everybody screamed and Fitz is like, ah! I gotta be honest, I laughed. Okay, guilty as charged, I laughed at that scene. But the laugh did not redeem that whole thing with them wanting to pull a prank on Sky being completely unprofessional. That's where I said, okay, really guys? You want to be like hardcore S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, you want to gain the access to all the top secret stuff so you can play around with all the new technology, the stuff that you guys fetish for. Here you are playing pranks. I mean, that just seemed completely out of it, and I didn't appreciate that. Still, I like this episode way more than the last episode. It didn't have those expectations of it being a Thor tie-in. And to top it all off, this episode ended up being more of a Thor 2 tie-in than the actual Thor 2 tie-in episode. I mean, the explanation as to why this guy's not really a ghost, but mainly a guy that has been researching all of that stuff that was going down in London and managed to cause an accident that has him trapped between the different dimensions that Thor and Malekith were passing through at the end of Thor: The Dark World. I thought that was really interesting, and it ended up being a more suitable tie-in than the actual episode that was supposed to be the actual tie-in to Thor 2 that ended up being nothing more but a disappointing, and an episode that could have been put at any point in the season. And that definitely gave this episode the step up over last week's episode. And again, it explored May's background like I've been wanting to, and I really like that there's still some details there that could be explored in the future of the series. And this episode, along with the case that was in it, allowed for characters to loosen up and become a little warm, especially with Sky, Ward, and May. So I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8.1 out of 10, which is a B-. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back next week for my review of episode 10, and until then, I'll see you guys later.